All right, let's talk about something that could feel like a total black box if you've ever tried to ship goods internationally: freight costs. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and show you exactly how carriers figure out your bill, whether your stuff is crossing the ocean or flying through the sky.
So you've got your product ready to go. You get a shipping quote, and there it is, a final number. But how? How did they actually land on that number? Understanding the how isn't just for fun. It's honestly the key to getting a grip on your costs and making way smarter decisions for your business.
Okay, so at the highest level, you've basically got two main choices. There's sea freight, which is really the workhorse of global trade. Yeah, it's slower, but it is way cheaper, especially when you're shipping a lot of stuff. Then you have air freight, the express route. It's fast, it's reliable, but boy, you're going to pay a premium for that speed. The choice seems simple, right? But the way costs are calculated for each one is where things get really interesting.
First, let's dive into the sea route. You might think a gigantic container ship is all about weight, but that's not quite right. The most limited and therefore the most valuable thing on that ship isn't its ability to carry weight, it's the actual physical space inside those steel containers. And that single fact pretty much dictates your entire sea freight cost.
And to measure that precious space, the entire industry uses one standard unit, the CBM, which stands for cubic meter. You can just think of it as the universal language for volume when we're talking about sea freight. Every cost calculation you get is going to start with this number.
And calculating it is honestly way more straightforward than you might think. You just measure your box's width, length, and height, all in centimeters. Multiply those three numbers together. Then you take that big number and divide it by 1 million. That's it. The number you get is your shipment's volume in CBM.
Now, let's be real. Unless you're a huge company, you're probably not shipping enough stuff to fill an entire container by yourself. That means you're almost certainly going to use what's called LCL, or less than container load. It means exactly what it sounds like. Your stuff is just sharing space inside a container with shipments from other people.
And this brings us to the single most important question in LCL shipping. When the carrier writes up your bill, are they going to charge you for the physical space your shipment takes up, its CBM, or are they going to charge you for how much it actually weighs on a scale?
So which one is it? The rule is incredibly simple, but it's absolutely critical. The carrier charges you for whichever is greater. Here's how they figure it out. They look at your volume in CBM, and they look at your actual weight in tons. The industry's golden rule is that 1 CBM of space is considered equal to 1 ton of weight. So if you're shipping something big and light, like a bunch of pillows that take up 2 CBM but weigh almost nothing, you're paying for 2 CBM. But if you ship a tiny, super dense crate that's only half a CBM but weighs 1.5 tons, well, you're paying for 1.5 tons.
And here's a little pro tip as your business grows. Keep this number in your head, 15 CBM. Once your LCL shipment starts getting bigger than 15 cubic meters, it's really time to start looking at booking your own private container, which is called FCL. It often ends up being more cost-effective, and it's safer for your goods, too.
So for sea freight, it just all boils down to that one simple question. Is my shipment bigger or is it heavier? And the answer to that question directly tells you what you're going to pay for. Okay, now let's switch gears and talk about air freight, where the logic is similar, but with a little twist.
When we move from the ocean to the sky, the whole calculation shifts a bit. Now, while space on a plane is obviously tight, the number one concern for airlines is weight. But it's not just the weight you see on a scale. It's more about how heavy your package feels to the airline, which is this really interesting mix of its size and its actual mass.
This brings us to the main event for air freight: gross weight versus volume weight. Gross weight is easy. That's just what your package weighs. Simple. But volume weight, which you might also hear called dimensional weight, is this clever calculation that turns your package's size into an equivalent weight. And, you guessed it, just like at sea, the airline is going to bill you for whichever of these two numbers is bigger. So calculating this volume weight is going to feel really familiar, but with one huge change. Again, you multiply width by length by height in centimeters. But this time, instead of dividing by 1 million, the magic number for air freight is 6,000. That is the industry standard number they use to convert the size of your package into its chargeable weight in kilograms.
Let's see this in action, because this makes it so clear. Imagine you're shipping these boxes.
You put them all on a scale, and their actual combined weight is 400 kilograms. Okay, but because they're pretty big, when you run that volume weight calculation, their size gives them a chargeable weight of 510 kilograms. So which one is the airline going to bill you for? You got it, the 510 kilos. This is exactly why big, light things can get shockingly expensive to ship by air.
So why would you ever pay that higher price? Well, it's a strategic call. You choose air for its incredible speed. It's for those urgent, we need this now orders. It's for high-value electronics, for things that can spoil like fresh flowers, or for products where timing is everything, like a new fashion line dropping. In those situations, being late costs more than the shipping itself. So the key question you have to ask for air freight is this: is my shipment actually heavy, or is it just bulky? Answering that means comparing the gross weight to the volume weight. The moment you know which one's going to be bigger, you've pretty much mastered your air freight costs. Okay, before we wrap this all up, there's one really important thing to remember. The freight cost that we've just been calculating, whether it's sea or air, that's just one piece of the final puzzle. It's usually the biggest piece, for sure, but it's not the only one.
Your final quote is really made up of a few different parts. You'll see local charges from the starting point for things like port handling. Then you'll have the main freight cost that we just figured out, and finally you'll have charges on the other side, at the destination, for things like customs clearance and trucking the goods to a warehouse. And this is why you should always ask for a detailed, itemized quote so you don't get hit with any nasty surprises.
So, after all that, what's the one thing you really need to remember to make a smart shipping choice? Well, it all comes down to two super simple rules. Let's just boil it all down to the two golden rules. For sea freight, it's a fight between its physical size, the CBM, and its actual weight, the tons. For air freight, it's a fight between its actual weight, the gross weight, and its bulk, the volume weight. For both of them, you always pay for whichever number is higher. If you could just understand those two matchups, you will never be blindsided by a shipping quote ever again.
The power is officially in your hands now. You understand the logic behind the numbers, so the next time you're getting a shipment ready, you can actually figure out your chargeable weight before you even make the call. You can answer the real question: based on your product, which route is the right one for you?